morning, everyone. This
Okay,
is
I'm all
Fran
set.
Lewis, the queen of Restream. This is MJ Network on Restream. And I have one of my favorite authors there, JJ Harragon. And this book is fantastic. I have it in front of me, Goodbye Demons. And what really got me is when injuries cut short the time figure skating career of Angie Fernandez Parnell, she joins the Peace Corps. She's assigned to Tunis, where she finds her soulmate, U.S. diplomat James Whitcomb. At the conclusion of his tours of duty, they marry, and within weeks of the wedding, he is taken captive in Iran hostage crisis of 1979 to 1981. You got to read the rest to find out what happens when he comes back. This was really sad because if you listen to the news, that's what's going to happen. Okay, so the title of the book is Goodbye Demons. I got to put on the reading glasses. And tell us about it. How come you decided to write this? And why about Angie and the Peace Corps?
I'm sorry.
Why did you decide to write about Angie and the Peace Corps?
Um, Two things. One was it's got to get off to a good start, and she joins the Peace Corps early on, and I'm hoping that that captivates the reader's attention. The other thing was it's an integral part of her personality. She,
Mm-hmm.
um, she's a very can-do person. She's fairly aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason she joins the Peace Corps is because she suffers an injury while she's ice skating, and she's put out a commission on her goals as an elite ice skater. She wants to be on the Olympic team, so she joins the Peace Corps, and as you said, that's where she meets her soulmate, and then the story takes off from there. I have a thing for Peace Corps volunteers because when I was in the Foreign Service in Brazil, we I had a lot of contact with them, and they had a tough life. I really like those people. So maybe that's why I put her in the Peace Corps.
My nephew spent a lot of tours in Iran in the army. He is now a lieutenant in the army and he's retiring after 35 years next year. So I know my other nephew was in the Air Force. So I do know, and my uncles grew up, but one of the people that was friends with my grandma, my mother-in-law, was there when this all happened. So this means a lot. So she became with Angie. This really was great. They became a great team. She and Sarah. Why were these children not cared for? That's what got me. Great for kids, Terry Trees, and everyone. What was this outreach center that they created when she finally got there?
Well, she becomes a Peace Corps volunteer. She gets assigned to Tunis. She has a Peace Corps partner, Sarah, and and a lot of these Peace Corps volunteers are pretty much left on their own. And she's assigned to work with the Community Development Center in Tunis, and they set her up in a little hut off to the side where she and her partner create what they call the neighborhood community center, where they teach English and do a lot of activities with kids, and that's what gets them going. And she ends up doing a vaccination project, which really gets her in with the people in the neighborhood.
It's so sad because she was an ice skating champ, and that's bad. She just got hurt, and she couldn't ice skate anymore. And I never could ice skate. My sister could, but I there's a lot of things that I learned a long time ago that I you could only do so much and not more. So at least she went in a different direction. How did they describe the program that they sent the kids? I was so impressed with that. How did they create this reading and writing program for them? Because that's something I've done.
How did she create it? I didn't understand your question, friend.
The question: how did she create this? They worked in a school, and there were kids that never taught to read or anything, vaccines and antibiotics and stuff. And then she decided to create a program for them. Who is Omar? And how does he create the flyer for them in order for people to know, more about them?
She's assigned to Tunis as a
Yeah,
Peace Corps
yeah.
volunteer, and she works with the community development center there. And so they need something to do. And a lot of the Peace Corps volunteers are kind of left on their own,
Mm,
create things to do. And that's what happens to Sarah and Angie as they're left on their own in this poor neighborhood in Tunis. And so it's natural. Uh,
mm.
one of the natural things they do is teach English, have English conversation classes, because English is a valuable commodity for young people around the world.
Yeah, she went, yeah.
So there's a lot of kids there who are eager to practice their English and learn English better. And so this gives them a natural in with them. And then from that, they kind of branch off into any activity they can think of that will relate to these kids that they're working with and the people that they're living with.
Well, she met somebody first that wasn't really right for her. And what were the ice skaters important? And who is Parker? And why did he like her? And I didn't like him at all.
Well, I make her an ice skater because I want to show part of her personality. She's really, as the book opens, she's really obsessed with this idea of making the U.S. Olympic ice skating team, figure skating team. And so she insists on doing a routine she's not ready for that her coach keeps warning her not to do. And so it's this part of her personality that forces her to keep doing this, that causes her to suffer this injury that ends her ice skating career.
Mm.
And, then, after her husband is taken hostage, the same personality trait pushes her into doing something that she probably shouldn't have done. And but that's a great part of the story, and I don't want to give it away. I don't want to give you a spoiler, Fran.
The most beautiful part of the story, like I said before, was the learning center for the kids. What did each of them do? And the nurses, they had to depend on nurses to come for vaccinations and stuff. And that is so sad because so many kids died. I mean, today, there was on the news 2 weeks ago that parents didn't want to get their kids the measles vaccine, the MMR. And how stupid is that? I mean, I was lucky when I was teaching, they made me get the MMR. Of course, it didn't exactly do well. I didn't do very well with it. Got kind of sick. I also got the German measles right afterwards. But you know what? You're better off getting it than not. So, how did they decide to get to vaccinate these kids? Where did they get the money for all of this?
The She witnesses a child dying from measles that easily would have been prevented if
Uh-huh.
the child had been vaccinated,
Mm.
and so there's a local office for Doctors Without Borders that's planning to send some of their doctors to this place. Now, in reality, I don't know if Doctors Without Borders ever sent anybody to Tunis. For purposes of my story, they do. So she goes down to Doctors Without Borders, and they say, "Well, we can handle the vaccinations, but we don't have the money for the vaccines." And well, it turns out Angie is the stepdaughter of a fairly affluent businessman, and he puts up the money for it. That's how they get the money to buy the vaccine. He gets Doctors Without Borders to organize it. He gets the nurse from the American Embassy to head up the actual vaccinations themselves. They're able to get a local doctor to oversee it, and and that's how she does it.
It's amazing because I even know that when I was teaching, a lot of the parents didn't want their kids vaccinated. There was a whole big controversy then. Even now, they were afraid that they were going to get sick, that something was going to happen. And because a lot of my students didn't get vaccinated, that's when I got the German measles 3 times in the 6th grade. And let me tell you, it's no fun either time. Yeah, and when you get the German measles or the swine flu, yeah, I was out of school for a month.
Well,
That,
this story's taking
that's scary.
place. This story's taking place in a place where uh,
Yeah.
people do want their kids to get vaccinated because they see all these childhood diseases they're getting, and they could be prevented if they could just get vaccinated. And you, you 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 didn't have this big lobby like we got today, trying to convince people that vaccinations are dangerous. And
I couldn't put this down. I literally couldn't put this down because there were so many things. Each chapter has its own sort of like punchline at the beginning. Things will not go well for you in 1979 in Tehran. And it bothered me because she met Parker first, and I knew right away he was out for something. Then when she decided to talk to somebody else or deal with it, he didn't like that. So, and she wound up in bad shape. Now, why did they decide to add chess to their schedule, which is really good? And why were they worried about the measles and all the rest of the vaccine given together? So, why did they add chess to the schedule for the kids, which is a great game?
I could not hear your question.
Why did they add chess to the kid? The kids wanted to learn how to play chess. How come?
Oh, chess is very
Chess.
popular in the third world.
I
It
love
was
chess.
extremely popular in Tunis.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's you would go there, you would just see people sitting up with their chessboard, sort of like where you are in New York at the Washington Square Park, and you see these tables where people are sitting there all day long playing chess. And as a little girl, she grew up with that, and so she got very good at chess. And there were kids that were very good at it, so she got some money together and bought a chess set, brought it to the community center, and it became very popular.
My dad, I wasn't allowed to do sports because I was this weight. I'm 93 pounds, but I was this wide. I couldn't do sports or anything, and I was very bad at dancing, but I was great at chess. And I entered tournaments two and one when I was in college and high school. They had one of my classes in archaeology, one of my professors knew somebody, and he entered everybody in this chess tournament. It was so much fun. It's like the greatest game, but you really have to concentrate. Because if you lose your train of thought even for 1 second, they're going to checkmate you and you're not going to like it. So,
Yeah, you have to think ahead.
yeah, you have to have a good attention span. So, Stevie was wrong for her. Why does he attack her and what does she do? Because he was jealous. He was horrible, this guy.
He was obsessed.
Yeah.
To set this up for your listeners, um, she joins the Peace Corps. There's a contract worker for the State Department who becomes obsessed with her and wants to date her. He does not want to date him, and he gets drunk one day and he slashes her with a knife. Um, this is not unrealistic. Some of the Peace Corps volunteers did face dangerous circumstances. Some of them were killed. Some of them were killed by Americans, and so it's a very realistic setting for her. And
Now,
and
she
of course,
meets she meets James, right?
she meets James.
But first of all, this guy Stevie hurts her, puts her in the hospital. So how does he get away with that?
How did he get away with it? Well,
Yeah,
he didn't really.
got away with it.
He got he got he got put in a psychiatric ward
Yeah.
for in an indefinite period. By the time the book ends, uh, he's still held in this psychiatric ward in Oklahoma. So he doesn't really get away with it. But
It's sad because I got angry. She's smart and she realized it, but it was too late. So her expenses are to be paid, and how does her father help with the doctor? And then afterwards, what position does she accept, and explain why?
How's her father help with the doctor?
Um, she would her expenses were paid by her father. He helps. Then when she finally does it, she goes to work for the father, doesn't she? So what does she have to do then? What does she decide to do then?
No, she never really works for her father. She, as a college student, she worked for him part time. But
Yeah,
no, she's a she when she returns from the Peace Corps, she gets married. She returns to New York from the Peace Corps, and she she's now a full time student trying to finish off her college degree. So she's not she's not really working for her father. No.
now her mother wasn't happy that she was seeing him. They didn't feel it was proper.
Well, she and her
Yeah,
father are very tight,
yeah.
and they're very close together. And he does a lot of things for her, and she gives him a lot of satisfaction as a parent. You do get satisfaction from your children, and so there's a very tight bond between the two of them.
So, what was the importance of the ice skates? And why does she meets two women at the embassy when she's supposed to work there? Why did they insult her? They didn't think that she was good enough to even be there. The head of the embassy was really nasty. Why?
As I said, she was a competitive figure skater, and this was an important part of her life.
This it's sad. And they didn't think it was important for her to be there. So, what is this skating club, and why is it important?
Oh, uh, she's a all of
Oh,
these
that would
elite
have been cool. That would have been so cool when I was younger.
all of these elite figure skaters have skating clubs that they
Yeah,
belong to or they own. They practice and practice and practice and practice, and they sponsor tournaments. And so she's in a as the book opens, she's
yeah.
in a skating competition. First, no,
Yeah.
first of all, it opens. She's in a practice session at the skating club in
That's
the
sad.
and then in the second scene, she's in the skating competition for the Northeastern Regionals, which at that year was held in the Boston Garden in Boston. And it was held there that year. I looked that up.
I felt so bad for her because she was stuck. She got hurt.
She was
And
obsessed with it.
yeah,
She was determined she was going to make the Olympic team. And so she she works on this routine. Her coach keeps warning her, "Don't do this. You're not ready for it. You're not ready for it." And then she has an accident that ends her career.
that's the sad part. I know. Didn't give another chance. Now she meets James.
What is the sad part, except for one
That's
thing,
okay. She
that
couldn't do it.
she she rebuilds her life. She goes and rebuilds her life as a Peace Corps volunteer, and
Yeah,
then she rebuilds her life as a part of the Foreign Service community. And so this is a very resilient person. It really is a story of resiliency in the face of a lot of hardship.
this is a very sad story. So the scenes that really bothered me, and I sort of passed over some of them, were the ones. How did you create the ones with James in a prisoner of war camp in Iran? I cried the entire time I read that. And all that stuff is true, my nephew said, because my nephew had to go and get some people out.
The her husband James, yes, he's the
Yeah,
one who is taken captive and held in various places in Iran. There were 50 some hostages, and James is put through a lot of trials.
yeah.
And but everything that happened to James happened to one of those hostages. The only difference is they didn't all happen to the same person, and they didn't all happen the same way they did in the story. But at that part of the story is trying to tell you what it was like to be a hostage in very harsh circumstances in those days. And as a reader, at least from what the reviewers are saying, they comment, I felt like what it was like to be imprisoned in that embassy at that time. And that's what I'm trying to get across to people.
My friend before he died was in Vietnam in a prison camp.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and my grandmother was in a Polish prison camp. It was horrible. And my other one was in Bergen-Belsen, and she was tortured.
But
And I
none of
that's
those none of those instances that you read about though were made up.
yeah,
The A lot of the hostages wrote memoirs. A lot of them put up blog posts. A number
yeah.
of them wrote books. There were a number of books written about them. So all of these incidences were well documented. All I did was fictionalize them and apply them to the characters in my story.
I cried because it was too real. And if you look at the way they look at the news now, it is too real, all this stuff. And now supposedly the war with Iran, they have a contract. It's the ceasefire is whatever. It's going to be okay. I don't believe a word they say. I don't believe anything. So she decides to free him. How did she know how to go, where to go to get him free? And she know. And what is the sadness until she finally realizes when he's home. I mean, seriously, how does she go to free him? How does she try to go free James while he's in prison? That's kind of dangerous.
Well, she comes up with a scheme that
Yeah.
I don't want to tell the details.
Don't tell everybody. Yeah.
I don't want to spoil it for the reader, but she comes up with a scheme that is uh, pretty far out there, and it doesn't work. The hostage crisis drags on. One of the horrible things about it is if you're a hostage, you don't know that it's going to
Yeah.
end. Now, we know from 50 years later that it did come to an end, but those who are caught up in it, uh, they keep hearing one rumor after another. They're really blacked out from the news, but they keep hearing stories. They keep inferring things from what they can observe, but they don't know if they're going to be released. It looks one minute they can, next minute they won't, and this just goes on for 14 months. And then finally, of course, they are released as part of a deal that was struck between the United States and Iran. And so finally,
Mm.
they all come home. The amazing thing is they all came home alive. And there was an attempted rescue mission by President Carter in April of 1980 that failed, and 8 service people got killed in the failure, but the hostages themselves all came back. But the thing is, and one of the things that I wanted to get into the story was that on both her side at home
Mm.
and his side being captive there, it all doesn't end the day you come home. They both suffer from a great deal of post-traumatic stress, and they got to put their
Yeah.
lives back together, and they got to deal with. They don't even have a term, post-traumatic stress, that they can articulate at the time. So they got to deal with that. So there's really 3 stories here. There's Angie before the hostage crisis, during the hostage crisis, and then she and her husband trying to put their lives together after the hostage crisis.
It's scary. She learned something about him because when he comes home, he's not the same person he was before. He's very cold. So, well, counseling they suggested too, and that's scary because what about James is in the hospital? How does she deal with what he turned out to be? I mean, he was the love of her life, and then all of a sudden, he wasn't the love of her life. How does she deal with what really was what the truth was? That's horrible.
So that's a great question. So you've got the love of your life
Yeah,
that's been taken away from you for 14 months,
yeah,
and he comes back, and you're right, he's not the same person. And he can't get over that real fast. And so there are incidences when he has flashbacks, and they lead to confrontations between James and Lindsay. So how does she deal with that? Well, she deals with it the same way she deals with everything else. She plows ahead. She's a can-do person. So she decides, well, what James needs is we need to uh, we need to have more vacations, or we need to do this, or we need to do that. Uh, the one thing she never thinks of doing is going to a counselor.
Before I forget, Thursday, I had to move him because of the I had to move you because of the storm, and I had to move him because of something else. So on the Thursday, the 18th, we're going to have JP Peoples the lottery ticket. Michael Cowan will be here. How far would you go for $40 million? He paid 50 cents for a ticket, and his friend stole it. And what he does to get the 40 million, you won't believe. On the 25th, one of the New York Times most popular author in the world, Stephen Manchester. It's called The Ledger. It's true stories of the inside, what happens inside a prison. And there's three prisoners or three entities, and they describe what happens and the tortures that they go through. On the 29th, New York Times author Dick Belty, The Vanishes. And what way to start August but with Tess Gerritsen and Shadow Friends and Joe Clifford with the skeletal theory, the Mandela effect. That's just summer coming up. Friends booked till the end of October. And I'm honored that in September I'll be interviewing the producer of the Stephen Colbert Show. It's like unbelievable. I'm so impressed. So this part really was because I had to play this on the piano. Did you ever learn how to play the 1812 cello overture? I did. Not only that, I had I had to memorize it and play it in front of people in Carnegie Hall. That's not easy. So why is the 1812 overture explained? I love it. And I had to listen to it the other day on my phone.
The when this is based on a real incident.
Yeah.
Um, One of the hostages, after they were taken out of the embassy, they were put in this horrible prison called Evin Prison, Evin. And one of the hostages recounted in his memoirs that he could hear a prisoner, an
Mhm.
Iranian prisoner, being whipped with one of these whips that like a lion tamer uses. He could hear the whip crack. And apparently one of the guards was too obsessed. He found himself a piece of music, made a tape of it, the 1812 overture. The finale of it is very long. So he could play this finale of the 1812 overture and block out the sounds of this prisoner being whipped and the screams of the prisoner. But there was one end of the loop that wasn't totally closed. And whenever the tape would get back to that, you could hear the whip cracking and the guy screaming. So I put James in that situation, and I have James listening to this, and this just puts an indelible mark in his mind because you're locked up. You hear somebody being tortured, and in your mind, you're thinking, oh my God, am I next? Okay, so fast forward, the crisis is open. James is back home with Angie, and
Yeah.
they decide to spend Memorial Day listening to the Memorial Day concert. And at the Memorial Day concert, every year, the last thing they play is the finale of the 1812 Overture. And so James has left the room, he comes back, and that's playing, and he goes berserk. It just gives him a flashback, he goes berserk.
Well, she made the right decision at the end. But before I forget, what happened to Sarah?
What happens to whom?
What happened to her partner, the girl that she worked with at the Peace Corps?
Oh, she goes on to become a law student in
Became a
Dallas
lawyer.
at the I think it's the University of Texas at Fort Worth. So she was on. They maintain friendship as the years go on. If there's ever a sequel, the partner will be part of it. And of
Well,
course, she's
I
part
have
of
to
it here
give
because
I have to give Angie also why this ending. I cried at the end of this, but I understood that there are a lot of lessons learned in this story, and she learned quite a bit, and she didn't give up.
no, she doesn't. She's not a give up kind of person.
So, what is Zenith? What is that company that she created at the end of the book? And it's right here. It's called yeah, where am I here? The Zenith Capital Management Company. How did she create that? And it's
Oh,
very
she did not.
positive. That's
That
great.
was her father's company. Her father is an investment counselor. He calls his business that's the name of the business that he's got, and that's how he got his wealth.
It's great. So are you bringing her back in the sequel, or is this just a standalone?
This is part of a three-part series, actually. Um, it's the sequel
Oh,
to
goody.
this book here, Goodbye Bobby, which deals with the last days of Robert F. Kennedy Sr. And the first in the series, and she plays a major role in this book. The first book in the series is Goodbye Cuba, and she's
I
just a
didn't get
little,
that one.
and I can send it to you. But
Yeah, because I didn't
it's
read that one.
it's the third in a series, Fran.
Well, for those of you that don't know, I'm impressed with myself. It's called When Lies Win. Every story, the character tells a lie, and if they don't repent, they wind up suffering, and the mirror dishes out the consequence, and it's painful, which makes me so happy. Um, some of the stories are actually true. The last story is about something that I went through when I was younger, when I was dating someone that was very close to me. He was amazing. His mother didn't think I was good enough because the girl that he married's father paid her $9 million to marry him, supposedly. Supposedly. So this story is a true story, and she winds up getting what she did. The name of the mirror is Mirabella, and if you mess with my mirror, you might wind up like that, or even worse. And all of the stories are true. Actually, so one is about a true story that happened to me teaching. My principal made me in charge of testing, and I was her assistant, the assistant principal. And the writing and reading scores came in, and the Board of Ed called me from 1 to 10, living 64 Court Street, and said that they didn't like my scores. Would I please change them? This is a true story. The head of testing said, we want you to change the writing scores because two classes passed and three failed. It was a writing test. So the scores were like 1 to 4. So too many people got ones and twos in these classes. And she said, if you want to keep your job, you're going to change the scores. So I asked my principal. I said, I'll tell you what, get somebody else to do the test coordinator. I refused to do it. I would not do that. It was only a writing test. And my principal sided with me. But a month later, this is true, the State Department of New York State issued me a summons to send them the practice test and the real test and the scores and the list to see what they thought. A month later, I got an apology letter saying that every score was right. They had no right to question me. That does happen. And that's what's really scary. So a lot of lessons learned. She's amazing, Angie, and she really worked really hard. But I hope you bring her back. But what's next for you? And when am I getting it?
I'm sorry.
What's next for you? And when am I getting it?
Oh, um, there might or might not be a sequel through this. I
Yeah.
really want to shift gears, and I drafted a World War II novel, and I'm going to follow that up with a novel on the Berlin airlift of 1948-49.
That's amazing. I know. One of the authors that I work with was actually there on D-Day on June 6th, 1994. And his book was about that. It was interesting, very. Now, one last question. What is the definition of the title, Goodbye Demons, has a lot of multiple meanings. What is it? What do you want people to get from the title? Because when I looked at it, I said, this is really good.
We all have our demons, our internal demons
Yeah.
that we have to wrestle with and we have to overcome. And if a person has been in prison for 14 months under harsh circumstances, illegally and immorally, and that person has a spouse, they both have demons that come out of that. And somehow they have to overcome the demons. So Goodbye Demons really is their struggle to overcome those demons and the extent that they're making progress and saying goodbye to them.
So many people. This is so great. I actually told my pharmacist he wants the book. So when I come up to get something this weekend, he gets the book. And
They
thank you.
can they can go to my website,
Oh, that's good. That's what they need to know.
jjharragon.com. Very simple, jjharragon.com. They can order it there. They can go to Amazon. Um, they can go wherever they buy books, and bookstores will order it for them. It's
Let me go. Let me end the stream. Don't go anywhere.